I'd now like to welcome our first keynote speaker for the conference. He'll be discussing global trends in angel investment from the perspective of who is investing in what and why. An angel investor for nearly 20 years, giving advice and support to entrepreneurs, government agencies and investors across Europe and further afield. A non-executive director of the Scottish, not the UK, Angel Capital Association. Please welcome the world famous Nelson Gray.
It's just coming up 10:15 at night for me, so I apologize, I'm going to use some notes. So Sue has given me a pretty easy job here. Just take a global perspective on angel investing. Who are the principal investors around the world? What are the hot sectors? Trends in valuation, term sheets, where to go to bag a unicorn. And are we all doomed to be crushed by a bubble, trampled by the crowd, or screwed over by a VC? I think the last one's kind of a redundant question, isn't it? So you want some hard data, a lot of graphs, something to really get your teeth into, which gives me a bit of a problem because normally, although I travel around a lot and talk a lot, I usually pick my audiences more carefully. I'm not used to people who actually know about this stuff, which is why I spend a lot of time working with governments around the world. So I thought I would talk about data. We've just had some very interesting data. I think it's great that you're collecting data. I think angel data is very much like sex. It gets very exaggerated as to performance. I don't know if that is related to the fact that most business angels are also guys, but I suspect it is somehow. So, to prepare for the conference, I thought I'd better do some research. So I Googled kind of business angel activity, and it kept throwing up interesting stuff, but not necessarily, I thought at first, relevant. So Angel Di Maria is a soccer player who's just been sold for 69 million quid. And I couldn't understand why Google would give me this, and really, apart from the name. And then I realized that Manchester United originally paid 90 million for him, so Google thought this was a typical good angel exit. Google then gave me a whole bunch of images relating to Victoria's Secret's angels, and I kind of lost interest in preparing for the talk after that. So that's it, guys. So, okay, global trends. How do we pick out global trends that will be useful to you? ACA data very recently says that the average, let's talk about average deal sizes so we know where we fit in. You've just had some information up there, but let's look. So how big a deal should we be doing? What should we expect? ACA says $250,000 a deal. TechCrunch just reported on a deal coming out of Switzerland where two angels, one from Canada, one from Switzerland, did a deal where they put in 9 million. And I'm currently working in developing countries where a big deal is somewhere between $50,000 and $120,000. So the global trend on deal size is somewhere between $10,000 and 9 million. So I hope that's helpful to you. What about VC activity? What's the global trend in VC activity? Well, PitchBook have just announced in the report, US activity plummets in Q3, by which they meant the number of deals done in Q3 was only 1,400. Now, that's the number of deals. The actual money going into those deals has actually gone up. So the trend apparently is fewer deals, bigger deals. But I've also got the UK data, which says that in the UK, VC are doing more smaller deals. So the global trend in VC activity is that they are doing more and less smaller and larger deals. That is also helpful in my strategic planning. So what does this actually mean in terms of trying to paint something which is sensible and useful for you guys? I think the answer is there isn't a global trend which is useful or sensible for you to copy. There is interesting information out there that you can take and adapt. We live in a very diverse world of angel and entrepreneurial activity now. It is not simply something which should be dominated by TechCrunch and what's happening in the US, and particularly what's happening in Silicon Valley. In fact, I do run a little presentation deck which is entitled Why I Don't Care About Your Technology or What They Say in Silicon Valley. And when I say I don't care about the technology, it's on the first, I don't care about the technology the first time I meet the entrepreneur, I want to know what the business is. But I also am not interested particularly in what the valuation is in Silicon Valley. I want to know what's relevant for me. But it is a global environment we're working in, and stuff keeps popping up, even relatively recently. A lot of stuff coming up about an African business angel network, which I find fascinating. You know, we've actually got inter-country angel network operating in Africa. We've got an angel group, UAngel. Now, I know some of you think you work in some pretty tough environments, but this is an angel association for the Ukraine, which I think is quite an interesting place to be trying to, you know, do angel deals and start technology. We have Womena, which is a women's angel group operating in the United Arab Emirates, which has had 14 pitches and funded 2 deals. And the BBC website at the beginning of this week ran an interesting article on the development of technology companies, the rise of web tech and digital in Iran, where the Iranian equivalent of Amazon employs 900 people and has 850,000 hits a day. Angel activity, funding all this, and the entrepreneurs behind it is happening everywhere in the world. Joss Lerner produced a report earlier this year, Globalization of Angels, out of Harvard and MIT. And basically, the academic research says angel activity depends on where you are. And you need to adapt what's happening to your own environment. So in some environments where entrepreneurship is less developed, people will invest in later stage deals. Where it's more developed, they'll invest in earlier stage deals. So don't get hung up about reading the headlines and thinking you're going to miss out on a unicorn just because you're not investing in the USA or one of the hot centers. In my view, as an angel investor, you invest in what you want to do. So I invest under the pillars. I've talked to some of you about this before. Archangel was started years ago, 1992. Four pillars that Archangel still operates on. We invest in Scottish technology companies, basically to put something back. We invest in companies we can add value to by our intellectual and contacts. We invest in companies we can have fun with, and we invest to make some cash. And basically, that's what guides us. So we're not chasing the hottest deal around the world. We are more focused on what's happening locally. On the other hand, I am involved in international group because I happen to like a group of guys in the States, and I joined an angel group there and put some money into their fund. Not because I'm chasing the deals particularly, but because I like the people. So I don't mind what type of angel you are. I don't mind if you're doing it for higher financial returns and lower social returns. I don't mind if you do it in a group or a list or a network. I don't mind if you do it internationally. I don't mind if you are a solo investor. I don't mind if you are industry specific. What I'm interested in is hearing your stories so I can basically steal your knowledge and take it back and adapt it for myself. And end up with a better investment group at home. And that's why we are here. We are here to share. So let's go back to some of those issues that are kind of hot and everybody wants to make sure that you're not losing out. Unicorns. Everybody's talking about unicorns at the moment. It just happens that unicorn is the official animal of Scotland. I'm not kidding you. I jest you not. The official animal of Scotland is a unicorn. Hey, we're a country known for myths and fables, for goodness sake. It is. We've been using it as a heraldic symbol since the 12th century. And in terms of actual unicorns, we have two. We have FanDuel and we have Skyscanner, and they both are based in Edinburgh, and they are both billion-dollar valued companies, which is great. But in Scottish heraldic images, the unicorn is shown as chained. It has a chain around it because a wild and free unicorn is a dangerous beast. And I do wonder how many of us angels would actually want to be in a unicorn these days. Because it's great having put in the first few $100,000, but would you really want to be sitting underneath a cap table which has about 600 million sitting over the top of you? I'm not so sure. So maybe unicorns are a wee bit too high maintenance for us, and I don't know how many of you have started picking up some references in the press to a new piece of terminology. It's called the uni-corpse. Now, you read some of the blogs, and basically what they're saying is, look, these valuations of $1 billion or more are actually relatively fake because all that's happened is a VC's come in, given a stupid valuation, and taken a 2x preferential return off the top, so they don't care what the valuation is. But they're now worth $1 billion or $2 billion or whatever the stupid number is, so they're never going to go in the public market. Even the biggest traded companies aren't going to buy you. So I'm not quite sure. I think there's a lot of kind of myth and unreality about it. So rather like a little girl who was heard chatting to her mum in a dressing up, costume hire shop, not everybody wants a unicorn. Mummy, I don't want to be a unicorn. That's just a pony with a pointed head. I want to be a dragon with wings and breathing fire. And of course, dragons, that's what angels are, dragon's den. So what about the bubble? Are we living in a bubble? Well, Dave McClure of 500 Startups thinks so. He tweeted, I think yesterday, the day before, we are definitely in a bubble, about talking about the bubble. Yes, I think in many environments, prices for stock are being driven up. They're being driven up for a variety of factors in different countries. I think there's a lot of dumb money chasing deals. In the UK, particularly around London, I've got a lot of dumb money that's been sucked into early stage investing because of the tax system. I actually think one of our tax breaks, the CDIS scheme, is too generous. People are throwing money in just to get a tax break with no thought as to follow on whatsoever. And it is definitely increasing the value. Do I have a bubble in Scotland? Nah, because we're too damn mean. Well, actually, no. What happens is, yes, we have 20 groups, but we know that we're going to have to syndicate deals, so we don't compete. You only have a bubble if you allow the market to have a bubble. You are the angel community of your countries. You can control this. There's no reason. I'm not in a position where I must do any deal. So to some extent, I think, yes, you're in a bubble. What concerns me most about the bubble is actually the volume of companies that are getting funded with a few 100,000 who will have no chance whatsoever of getting follow-on Monday. And we're going to have hundreds of companies fail, and I don't know what effect that's going to have on the mentality of young entrepreneurs who see people starting and then just not getting anywhere. So that would be my concern about a bubble. VCs, are they coming back, was a question I was asked. I can't actually notice if they ever went away. That's because when we invest in Scotland, we have very few resident VCs, if any, nowadays. So when we choose a deal, we choose deals that we think that we can fund through the life of the deal. We don't do a deal hoping that one day we'll attract a VC. And if you look at the data that kicks around, last year there was supposedly about 73,000 angel deals in the US. And there'll be about 4,500 VC deals. So clearly most angel deals don't get VC. But that, it's not a problem, because if you look at exit data in Europe, only about 14% of the successful ITC exits had VC money in them. Now, they're the bigger exits, admittedly. 14% had VC money, and they accounted for 34% of the value. But most companies are getting to exit profitably without the VC. So I'm not particularly worried about whether VCs are coming back or not. What interests me much more is the growth of corporate venturing. So corporate VC investing, if we can put it that way, now accounted at the beginning of this year in the UK for 11% of all VC activity, and it's growing. It's almost doubling every year. That, to me, is a much more exciting opportunity to get in with corporates because they actually have value add as well. They can actually get you into markets and get you new technology. So that's the exciting bit for me. I think the really big issue or the really big trend across the world, and you've embraced it, is syndication. You saw some numbers up there. I think most of the, 70-odd% of the deals in the US are now done by syndication. In Scotland, almost every deal is done by syndication. Even where we could, as a group in Archangel, do all of a deal, we would much rather, if there's another group interested, reduce our share of the deal in order to get more angels into that deal on round one. Because however clever we think that deal is, we have no idea whether it's going to be successful. I'm slightly mocking if people say this is a really good deal. So this is the good deal you're doing, and the other ones were the bad deals you deliberately did as well. We don't know which is a good deal or which isn't, so we share. So we have a very wide shareholder base because it's much easier to get people in on round one than it is to try and sell them in round two. But I think the syndication is growing really big. We have somebody here from Golden Seeds, and it caught my attention that they've recently syndicated a Series B for one of their companies, an angel round of $12 million. That's a big angel round. Golden Seeds, Tech Coast Angels, Cowtown Angels, a whole bunch of you. That's really pretty impressive. And I think that's the way you've got to go. And one of if I have any comment in the few days that I've been here talking to people is, I am concerned that you're not syndicating enough and you're not putting enough into your companies. We are a relatively small country of 5 million people. We do a lot of med tech. A lot of it the problem of doing med tech and stuff in the UK is that the UK National Health Service doesn't buy any of it. So our market is the US. It takes a lot of money to get to the US, and I think you're probably in a very similar position. You've got to go a long way. So if I look at the 23 deals that we currently have live in our portfolio, the average first round of angel money that went in was $500,000, and that would have been topped up by our co-fund. There are 23 deals. Those 23 deals have now turned into 128 deals with follow-on. So the $500,000 has turned into $1.7 million per deal. We are syndicating and we're bringing co-funding in a lot. If we look at one deal in particular, Touch Bionics. So it's the most advanced artificial hand in the world. It was originally funded with £20,000 in February 2004. Since then, it has had 13 rounds of funding. In April, we pulled the IPO on the day of the IPO. In order to get it over the IPO, the pre-IPO funding, to give it the firepower needed to support that, was $2.5 million of angel money in the co-investment fund. And it's had a bunch of other stuff. Now that company, 75% of the sales come out of the USA. It's turning over about 12 to 30 million pounds, so 20 million dollars. But it's hard work getting technology into the USA and building it. So I just caution that you, I think, need to think about how you're going to do that. We are fortunate we have a co-investment fund that will continue funding businesses for a long time, from about £10,000 up to £2 million of co-investment money. So stopping at 250,000, you're only just beginning the journey, guys. Equity crowdfunding. Here's where we divide the room, isn't it? One of my disappointments is that the minister isn't here, because the minister's doing an address at the end today. I wanted him here at the beginning because I wanted to tell him the story about Alistair Carmichael, who's the Liberal Member of Parliament for Orkney and Shetland. And his constituents have been running a crowdfunding campaign. They've raised £100,000 to take him to the first sitting in 50 years of the electoral court to get him fired. I just wanted to know how much in favour of crowdfunding government would be after they heard that. He has started a crowdfunding campaign as well to pay his own legal fees. He's raised £8,000. I understand most of it came from his wife, who quite likes the fact that as an MP he has to live in London. Crowdfunding. We are using crowdfunding as business angels. We're using crowdfunding to prove a concept under advance payment. We are using crowdfunding to fill out rounds where we have done the first round of the deal and we're taking it to platforms like Syndicate Room. They vet the deals in terms of the business angel, and as long as you've got about 25% funded, you put it on. The controversy comes to where a company goes to crowdfunding first. Because I personally don't know any business angels who would subsequently fund a company that had first got the money from a crowd. That's my environment, maybe different elsewhere. Crowdfunding, I think, is going to be really powerful, really important for the 95% of businesses that we would never fund anyway. But for companies that need 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 million to get over the line in hard cash, it's going to be tough. What about the traditional model of angel investment I was asked about? You know, crowdfunding was going to kind of steal our lunch. What I think is interesting is that maybe in very developed environments where you have very sophisticated and experienced entrepreneurs who've been through the funding process several times and maybe had 2 or 3 exits, successful ones even, then angel lists and things like that are great. Where I'm working at the opposite extreme in countries where there has never been an angel deal, I believe that in those environments and in developing environments, the traditional angel group is the most powerful thing you can deliver. Because what is more important than the money is the time and effort you're going to put into your deals. Because the entrepreneurs have no clue. You have to be heavily engaged with those entrepreneurs to build them up. And that's why I think the traditional angel structure is going to continue to survive. Cross-border? Yeah, absolutely. Apart from anything else, how the heck are we going to syndicate all that money if we're not doing deals? There was a very insightful article I read about 4 o'clock this morning from somebody who pointed out if you want to do cross-border deals, if you want people to come and invest in your companies, you better be going and investing in yours. We'll hear from him shortly. It is definitely happening. People are doing it. There is a perception that it's not. There are definitely issues. The European Business Angel Association is currently calling for a European Business Angel passport to make angel investing cross-border in Europe easier. But a recent study of angels in London said that 22% of angels they surveyed had invested outside of the UK. Now that's partly, I think, driven by it's an international community. You have an international community. You have the ability to make those contacts. It will grow. It will come. We should embrace it, and that's why we're here. This theme today is about working together. We can work together. We can learn from each other. We can build networks. We can get to know each other. And it's through that we will build an angel community. We will build our own angel communities. We'll get our companies into a global stage. And we will continue to be a very powerful force for good, for our communities, and for the world. And if we get it right, we can make a buck or two as well, which is great. Thank you.
I was just looking at the logo, and it says Asian Business Angel Network. So I thought I'll bring some conversation going on Asia. One of the things that I'm noticing in Asia is that the age of the entrepreneur is about half of what I've seen here, and the age of the investors is also much lower than here, and they're investing in new things. So Asia is just thriving, and youngsters are taking a lot more risk, both as entrepreneurs as well as investors. Many of these startup entrepreneurs have exited from their businesses, and they are happy to plow money back into the system. And there are people who are mentoring the younger mentors who are mentoring people who are older than them. I think in Asia, one of the things that the trend is that people share a lot, people work cross-border a lot. And so, Nelson, my question to you is, we've got a bunch of people here who are either VCs, angel investors from the government, and then there are some who are wannabe. And so the question is first intra-New Zealand, and then inter-country cross-border. One,
recognize that it's not an immediate process. It's taken a long time for us to get our angel community going in Scotland. It is a steady process of education, but it is also, I think, a steady process of trying to inspire people. If you go and talk to people simply about this being a financial transaction, I think you're on a loser. Because frankly, you haven't got the data to justify why you should be investing as an angel financially at the moment compared to stocks and shares. We don't have the consistency in the data, and why am I going to tie my money up for 9 years? When I go and talk to people to start angel groups and get them involved, I do try and pull the emotional strings. I do try and say, this is something where you can make a financial return if you work at it and you work at it with friends, but it is also about doing something really amazing. We have created companies that literally are saving people's lives every single day. We are saving people's sight, we are saving people in surgery, we are connecting people so that they are not as lonely at home through the internet. All sorts of things are making people's lives better. And if you can bring people in and get them to share that, that's how I think you grab them. It's rather like, I remember an architect took me to a building in London, and he kind of basically said, I built that, and this thing goes up into the sky. And it's that kind of pride that you can actually point to something and say you've built it. And I think that's how you bring people in. And it's not a very key message, I think, from this morning's slide. You do not have to be super wealthy to do this. Many of our groups, many of the groups here, you are putting in relatively small amounts of money. But because you've got the power of 70 people in a group, that accumulates into something serious. So explain that to people, because otherwise people are scared that I have to be a multi-billionaire in order to play this game, and you don't.
So it's slightly shifting it away from just the financial returns, but you must have a passion, a journey to innovate and disrupt and do something new. You're reading every day in the newspaper that there are young kids all over the world doing new things. And it's a FOMO, it's a fear of missing out. Saying, hey, do you really want to miss out on that? So partly is it allocation? So it's not about being affluent and super wealthy that you've got millions of dollars and I'm going to set aside $500,000 this year for angel investing. But in India, for example, in Indian Angel Network, our investment size starts from 5 lakh rupees, which is 10,000 New Zealand dollars, right? And it goes up. So the amount of money that they raise is anywhere between $200,000 and $1 million.
Sure.
And there are 300 people in that angel network, and they have a conference call, and then 35 people are only allowed to invest.
Is that a legal requirement?
No, it's not a legal requirement. It's just that there are just too many people who want to.
Right.
Now, having said that, that's just the India rule. Now they've just started a UK chapter. Mm-hmm. They're starting a Singapore chapter, and they're also going to UAE. So now here is an angel network in India, which is going cross-border. So that's the other next thing is that, okay, New Zealand has a relatively small group and the numbers are small. How do we, one is we're saying sharing and we are here and we shake hands with all these other angels and we are angels. But beyond that, do you have any recommendation of how we could actually work together? Because one of my thesis is, you can't just expect me with my money to come here to New Zealand and write checks, right? I want to see something in reciprocation. So either you send me some terrific deals and not schlock deals, and on the other is that let's exchange deals. So put money into my deals or my venture fund, and then suddenly you get my attention. So do you have any advice?
I would agree with that. I constantly go to, particularly developing countries, where they expect you to, their idea is you will go to that country and invest in that country. Why would I? The ultimate motivation for investing outside of my comfort zone is maybe I can make more money in Italy or France or somewhere. Well, there's no evidence for that. Never mind the fact that who the hell would do business in France, for God's sake. But so, and the other thing I would say to government and agencies is do not expect this to happen by taking your companies on a roadshow and sticking them in front of a bunch of strangers, because that is not going to work either. This works because there's going to be some conversations here, and you're going to start inviting you into deals, but make sure it is reciprocal. And it takes a while, because I do not understand. I mean, if somebody said invest in India, my completely skewed and limited and biased knowledge would be that the bureaucracy of doing anything at all in India must be a bloody nightmare.
Right.
So it would scare the hell out of me. So find a way of making it easy. For me, it's easy to invest in John Houston's group because he's got a sidecar fund, and I can just drop the money in there. And that takes a lot of the pain out. I can turn up at the meetings, I can be part of the group, but that's made it easy. So find ways to get past these hurdles.
But that's what angel group is all about, right? Typically, an angel group would have a secretariat. There is a budget. We pay $1,000 a year. There is a group of people who are analysts. There is a lady who heads Indian Angel Network, for example. And it's her job to make sure that all the paperwork, the legal and everything is easy for us, as well as not only sending money in, but when we get an exit, how to get the money out. Right?
Well, I mean, you got to, having put money into a US fund, I'm actually kind of worried that they do have a successful exit, because the last thing I really want to have to deal with is the American IRS. The next time I go through Boston Airport, it's the kind of, that happy snap of rubber gloves as you arrive at passport control.
I'm not sure how much time do we have, but...
Sorry, you're getting excited about the gloves now, are you?